Hello, I am Amy Jones. I am your host for this podcast, which I am calling the Body Soul Wisdom Sessions. And you are here with me in my first episode. So I'm so excited to have you. I am an emotional eating coach, a nutritionist, and a clinical herbalist based out of Denver, Colorado, although I work with most of my clients over the phone. So I see clients from all over the nation. And I started this podcast because just about 5.5 years ago, I broke free from a lifelong struggle with disordered eating and body image stuff. And back then, I probably would have told you that the thing that I struggled with the most was my body image. I felt too chubby. My body parts weren't right. I was highly critical. Everything should have been different than it was when it came to how my body was put together. Okay, yeah, maybe I could have told you that I liked sweets a little too much, or I had a hard time saying no to certain things. But I didn't really identify my relationship to food as a real issue, not in the starting phases of my recovery, at least. It wasn't until I really started to quote unquote eat normally, or attempt to eat normally, that I saw just how warped my relationship to food truly was. And so, from 2012 to about 2014, I did a lot of work to change my relationship to food and to learn how to feed myself 3 meals a day, how to eat foods that weren't 100% carbohydrates and sugar, and through that, how to make a relationship with my body and my soul that was connected. That wasn't one where I was sort of dictating, this is how I should eat, or this is how I should feel, or this is what I should want. But a relationship that had me in communication with my body and my soul, so that I could pay attention to, I could honor, how about that? I could honor, like, when I felt sad about something and not eat over it. Or I could notice that, like, ooh, my body does not feel so great when I eat dairy, which was much more of a bummer than I expected it to be totally honest. So I came to realize that there was something deeply inherent to this way of being with my body and being in connection with myself that I had not learned anywhere else. There was a wisdom and a voice, an intuition that had probably always been available to me, but I had never learned how to listen to it. I had never even been taught really that it was there. It was truly through trial and error, and some work in other parts of my life that we'll get into later in other podcast episodes, that I came to realize that there was a wisdom and a voice of my body that I could listen to that I didn't know I could listen to prior, which had me doing wacky things with food and hating my body as a result. So fast forward to 2018, and I am a radically different woman than I was 5.5 years ago when I started this journey. And really, my journey to embodiment actually started in 2009, where I started to really look at my relationship to my body, my relationship to men, my relationship to sexuality. That's really where the wheels got turning. And from there, I started to see just how disconnected I was from my feminine body, from my feminine energy, just how much I did chastise myself, criticize myself, find fault with who I was. And as a result, I used food as an escape. I used food as a salve. I used food as a way to numb out and not have to meet life on life's terms. So things are radically different now, as I said earlier. But what I really wanted to get into today, I wanted to give you a little bit of my background since this is my first podcast. You may be watching this on YouTube, so welcome, hello, happy to see you for probably the first time. At the core of my work is this connection to our body and soul. Again, not a parent-child relationship, right? Where I call all the shots and I tell my body what to do and I control it and I go on these complicated diets, but rather I listen to my body and I pay attention to how it feels when I eat certain things, or I give it the space needed when I'm having certain emotions or certain experiences. I don't judge myself. I don't criticize myself. I don't shame myself. I just meet myself in a kind and compassionate and fiercely loving way. That's the goal, right? We're all somewhere on that path. Some are better at doing that. Some of us are worse. It's a daily practice of showing up to meet yourself with that kind of love and compassion and kindness that I believe are the true things that move us in this life. So from there, I have a few foundations of body, soul health that I wanted to share with you. The thing that you'll notice that's different about my work in this podcast is that while we're going to talk a lot about food and health and vitality and embodiment, what I am not here to do is say your life will be better if you lose 30 pounds. Your life will be better if you get fit or you meet a certain BMI number. Those are all fabrications that diet culture wants you to believe are true. That this sort of pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality tries to convince us that's the way to do it, is to toughen up and to struggle and to have some discipline and be tough with yourself. Juxtaposed against that kind of mindset is the very stark reality check of a statistic that 98% of diets fail. For all people who diet and lose weight, that within just a matter of a few years, they have gained back everything they lost plus some. So what that tells us is that diets don't work, and that mindset of try harder, better willpower, less calories, more exercise, life will be amazing when you're thin. It's not true. It doesn't actually work in reality. But it is a really seductive fantasy because it gives us the promise of change. It gives us the promise of being better. What I want to invite you to consider is that promise of being better or that promise of change is actually available to you now. You don't have to get thinner. You please don't eat less calories and exercise more because you will screw up your metabolism like nobody's business. Who you want to be and the life you want to have is available to you at any moment. In this moment, in the next moment. It simply requires a shift of your perspective and a shift of your willingness and maybe a couple hefty doses of courage to break out of this mold and this idea that we have been conditioned to believe that thinness equals good life. It does not, my friends. So let me jump into what I identify as the foundations of body, soul health. I would love to hear from you if you have other ideas of what connects you deeply to your body and soul. You are welcome to email me at hello@bodysoulwisdomschool.com. I welcome your feedback, your ideas, your struggles, whatever you have to share. I would love to be a resource for you. So let me jump into them. This is going to be a mix of some physical health stuff and some more spiritual, emotional stuff. And so I'm going to start with the very first one that I've sort of already been alluding to, which is checking in with your body to see how it feels after you eat certain foods or after you eat a meal. So one of the things that I work with my private clients on a lot is, how do we learn the skill of embodiment, right? It's not a skill that most of us have ever been taught. And how do you really learn to develop that for yourself? How do you actually learn what the voice of your body is, right? Because it's obviously not an actual voice that we're used to coming out of a human mouth. The way our body speaks to us is largely through sensation, emotion, or actual physical feelings, right? So like sharp stabbing pains or a dull ache or the feeling of being bloated. You may also feel like subtler sensations in your body, something like a tingling sensation or just like a slight shift where maybe something felt really empty and now it feels really full, or something felt really like fast moving and then it feels slow. Those are more like sensation based type communications that our body gives us. And then obviously there are emotions, which I'm guessing you're familiar with what emotions are. But I'm talking about things like sadness, anger, grief, joy, happiness, confusion. All of those are more emotional based experiences, again, that come with a physical communication as well. So this first tip that I have for you is checking in with your body around how certain foods make you feel. So for example, for me, for the longest time, embarrassingly so, I used to just think that the experience of being bloated at the end of the day was like, that's just what happened in people's bodies, right? Like that's just how it was for everybody, that your belly was just like bloated at the end of the day. And then in the morning you woke up and then it wasn't. And then like the whole cycle started again, right? No, that is not how it is for everybody. And it took me a lot of years to realize, oh, this is a communication my body is sending me that something I'm eating doesn't work for my body, right? And so I worked with a nutritionist who helped me with an elimination diet and found the foods that actually don't work for my body. And from that process, I began to listen in a totally new way to what does work and what doesn't work, and how I could take those signals like bloating and really use that as information, like, oh, there's something I need to pay attention to here that isn't working. So that's my first recommendation to you, is pay attention to, do I chronically have low back pain? Do I often feel really grumpy after I eat cheese? Or do I notice like when I drink wine, I constantly have this like red kind of allergic reaction on my face? Or that when I eat tortilla chips, I get puffy and like my face swells up? Like, those are just like totally random examples I'm giving. 100 different things could be happening for you in your body. But the point here is to start to pay attention to some of the signals that your body is giving you, and to be able to connect the dots with how the foods you're eating could be impacting your body. And you may say, like, what are you talking about, Amy? Like, my back pain could be associated with the foods I eat? Yes, in fact, it very much could. And so those are all places for you to turn inward, to listen more, and to learn about your body. Because to be honest, even if the information you start to pay attention to doesn't have anything to do with the foods you're eating, you're still learning your body in a new, deeper way. And that is a really valuable thing, no matter what the information is that you're getting from your body. It gives you a deeper relationship and a deeper way to understand yourself in this human body that you live in. So the second tip I want to give you is to acknowledge your whole self, right? Like to not shut any part of yourself out. So we have a tendency in our culture to want to avoid the negative emotions and the negative experiences that we have. We want to sort of like push through them or like get past them fast. Or I saw somebody post on Facebook the other day, like, what happens when you have a really negative experience and you don't want to feel those feelings? How do you pop yourself out of that place or something? This woman posted something to that effect. And I thought, like, just how sad it is that we want to sort of bypass the fall and winter of our lives, right? We only want to live in spring and summer permanently. And just how misguided that feels, because you have to have all the seasons. You have to have all the seasons in nature. And you, as a natural being, my friend, also have to have all of the seasons in your own lived experience. So I encourage you to give yourself more permission to feel all your feelings, to have your whole self, have your whole human experience. Like, that's what it's here for, right? We learn the most from those challenging times, from those quote unquote negative emotions. So give yourself the gift of getting to have your whole, full, saturated human experience. Again, I know this is not what culture teaches us. Culture teaches us to, like, again, pull ourselves up by the bootstraps and be tough and not show emotions and not be vulnerable. And likely that is a really great reason why so many of us feel disconnected or lost, or like we don't have the intimacy in our lives that we want. Because that kind of intimacy and that kind of depth of experience comes from giving yourself permission to have the full range of emotions and experience. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3 is a little bit more practical, or a little bit more like logistically based. And that is to eat regular meals. I can't tell you how many women I work with in my practice who just are challenged to feed themselves 3 meals a day on a regular basis. Particularly, friends, I hope you're listening here, particularly breakfast. Because breakfast sets the tone for your metabolism for the rest of the day. Again, this isn't about weight loss. This is about steady energy, a clear mind, and an ability to have the focus and the vitality to do what you need to do all day. And that starts with fueling yourself first thing in the morning. So I'll have women who tell me, I'm not really hungry until like noon. What that says to me is that your metabolism and likely your digestion is a little depressed. Who knew? But now you know. And there are really simple things you can do to improve your digestion so that you do feel hungry quicker in the morning, and you can feed yourself and give yourself the fuel you need to run optimally all day long. And the fuel I'm talking about is not a pastry and a coffee, as fun as it is to eat that. We want to fuel ourselves with more sort of like whole foods, protein, eggs if you are a vegetarian and a meat eater, some kind of like low sugar yogurt with hemp seeds or pumpkin seeds, something to really get yourself some solid fat and protein in the morning, because those are the best fuels to keep your body at a steady energy rate for the rest of the day. So that's tip number 3. Tip number 4 and 5 are also really logistical and practical. Tip number 4 is to increase your water intake. So I live in the Rocky Mountains, and it is dry beyond dry here. And what I mean by that, if you've never been here, is that the climate, we have very little humidity, and it is a really, really dry place. And I tend to be a really, really dry constitution. And so drinking water, not just for me because I live in a dry place and I'm a dry constitution, drinking water is fundamental to all of our bodies, right? We're something like 86% water. And most of us are chronically dehydrated. We're turning to things like sugar soda or fruit juices, thinking that those things will hydrate us. And to some degree, we get some hydration from fruit juice. But you really want to go for water. You want to go for the best quality water you can get. I'm not the water police, so I'm not going to tell you where. Maybe in another episode we'll talk about the quality of water. But you want to go for the highest quality water you can. And you want to aim for drinking in ounces about half your body weight. So if you weigh 170 pounds, I should have picked an easier number. If you weigh 160 pounds, then you want to aim for about 80 to 90 ounces of water, about half of your body weight, right? So water is fundamental in helping us go to the bathroom, helping absorb nutrients, helping with facilitation of all sorts of things in the body that we don't have to get into the science of right now. Water is also critical in helping your energy levels, in helping you sleep better at night. Believe it or not, it can help how do I say this? Like soothe an anxiety picture. It is one of the most basic things we can do, is give ourselves the basic building block of hydration and water in our daily life. So again, half of your body weight in ounces is what you should be drinking every day. Really, really, really simple. Not that sexy of a tip. But I promise you, if you're not drinking that much water, you will see drastic changes, if even just in the appearance and quality of your skin, if you begin drinking more water. Okay, that's tip number 3. And tip number 5, also really logical or logistical, maybe logical, which is you need to get your Z's, friends. You need to sleep. Your body does not function well with an erratic sleep cycle, with 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep a night. Now, I know if you are a new parent, it is incredibly challenging to get the sleep you need. So for this part of the podcast, I'm not exactly talking to you. For the rest of us, it is so incredibly important for us to set a steady schedule of sleep for our bodies to the best degree you can, right? I'm not asking you to be a Nazi about going to sleep every night at 10 o'clock, but find a rhythm that works for you. So what works really well for me is that I sleep from about 11:30 to about 7:15 to 7:45 in the morning. So I get around 8 hours of sleep every night. And I had to be really diligent for a really long time around my sleep because, as I'll share in future podcasts, I had a health crisis, a healing crisis, shortly after I broke my disordered eating. I was diagnosed with adrenal fatigue, which in no small part was probably due to the disordered eating patterns that I had been in. But as a result of that adrenal fatigue, I wasn't able to sleep well, and I could be up until 1 o'clock in the morning, fall asleep, sleep for 2 hours, wake back up at 3, and then not fall asleep again until 5, want to sleep until 10 in the morning, right? That didn't work for normal life. And so I had to do a lot of work to reset myself and find find that more center point for my sleep cycle. And if you are in a situation like that, I encourage you to email me. I'm happy to help you with some really basic building blocks that you can do for yourself around normalizing your sleep patterns more. So some of the things that I did was no blue light, no computer, no phone, um, not really even watching movies or TV, for a minimum of 2 hours before I went to sleep every night. I did things like no electronics in my bedroom. I limited the amount of caffeine I had every day. I made sure that I was eating high quality protein and fat for my meals so that all of the hormonal cycles in my body and um, things that helped regulate sleep and anxiety and all of those different stress pictures that could contribute to the quality of my sleep. I made sure that the nutrients I was giving my body were high quality so that I could optimize those hormones and that stress response, that stress and anxiety response. Um, I also made sure that I was drinking plenty of water because that contributes to sleep. And then I was doing things like making sure that I was getting the supplements that I needed. So things like magnesium, which were largely deficient in our culture because it's deficient in our soil, which means it's deficient in our food. So things like magnesium, which can help relax the body and help you fall asleep. I was doing a lot of little tweaks like that to help myself get better sleep. So if anything I have said there around my struggles with sleep resonates with you, I encourage you to try those on and see what will work for you. So to recap my 5 tips, the first is listen to your body. Listen to what it has to say in a value neutral way, right? This isn't another place for you to beat yourself up about how you should have been better. You should have done it differently. This is just information you're receiving that you can then say, oh, it seems like maybe that didn't work. Maybe I should try something different. Or not. Maybe you get information that like, wow, this works really great for my body. I feel so energized and alive after I eat this thing or do this thing or work out or talk to a friend, right? It's all information for you about how far or how close you are to the experience you want to be having in your body. The second one that I suggested was to acknowledge your whole self. So to give yourself the space and the permission to have the positive and the negative, the light and the dark, to let yourself have all of the seasons of your emotional experience rather than just wanting to try to live into the positives, into the like quote unquote spring and summer of your emotional experience. The third tip that I gave was to eat regular meals, especially breakfast, and to fuel yourself from the beginning of the day with high quality fat and protein so that you have a steady burn of energy and focus and vitality throughout the day. The fourth tip I gave was to hydrate and to drink half of your weight in ounces every day. This has at least a dozen benefits to the way your body works. And so to give yourself this really, really, really simple gift or like up level in your self-care, which is simply to hydrate more and better. And then last but not least was sleep. Give yourself the gift of sleeping at least 8 hours a night. Now, I know there are those of you out there who are like, no, I don't need that much sleep. I promise you, especially in the winter months, our bodies are biologically wired to sleep more. This is a time that biologically, evolutionarily, our bodies think, oh, this is a time to slow down. This is a time to be quieter. This is a time to turn inward. And so this is a time for you to slow down and rest more, even if it is in small chunks. I know in our fast-paced life, in the 21st century, it can be hard to follow our biological rhythms. But see if you can just even once a week set aside time to sleep as much as you need to. You might be surprised when you turn off your alarm, when you prevent it from going off the next morning, just how much sleep your body does really need. So I encourage you to find a cycle that works for you that is a minimum of 8 hours a night. I mentioned that mine usually runs around 11 to 7 or 11:30 to 7:30. So finding that cycle for yourself and then doing what you need to do if you do have a disrupted sleep cycle, doing what you need to do to bring that back into a more, what I call homeodynamic rather than homeostasis, because homeostasis is kind of a misnomer, a homeodynamic kind of experience for your body so that it can get the rest and the recharge that it needs, so that you can continue to live a vital, energetic, fully expressed life. So that is what I have for you in podcast number 1. I'm calling this the Foundations of Body Soul Health. I'm so delighted that you were with me. We have so much more goodness to come in the upcoming episodes. I will be interviewing women that I know that inspire me and that are doing amazing work in the world. You get an episode from me once a week on various topics or whatever feels alive for me that week. So I can't wait to share this information with you, to hopefully support you to have a better life, to be more connected to yourself, and to find peace within your relationship to food and confidence in relationship to your body. So until then, friends, lots of love. Take care.